From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Maayan Schechter.
What's going on in here?
Oh, Gavin.
What is this?
You're back?
Hello, this is my podcast. Up, please. Okay, let's run this back. Let's start it again. Thank you. Okay, yeah. My father gave me this podcast. Anyway, from South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. And I'm your host, Gavin Jackson. Doesn't that sound right? It sounds proper. And this episode was recorded on January 29th, 2024 from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia. This episode is our Dem Pod. Yes, I'm looking to recap some of the major moments from this past month ahead of the first in the nation Democratic presidential primary here in our state on Saturday, February 3rd. We've seen multiple visits from the biggest names in the Democratic Party, including President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. While Iowa and New Hampshire were big for the Republicans, the Democrats kick off their calendar with South Carolina this Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah, take that, New Hampshire. Live free or die. While I breathe, I hope, bro. Now, the Lede loves hearing from you guys. That's why we have a voicemail box set up so you can call, share your feelings, share your thoughts, what's on your mind, any air fryer recipes that I need to do. 803-563-7169. It's very important that you call us, let us know that you're out there. My salary depends on it. I'm going to be honest. The livelihood of my life and this podcast depends on you calling. Or if you don't want to call us at 803-563-7169, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or fill out our survey at southcarolinapublicradio.org/lead survey. Okay?
Yes.
One or all three. We would love to get that from you. Again, my paycheck. And you can find out more about the South Carolina primary, the latest news from the trail, and more at southcarolinapublicradio.org and scetv.org/SC2024, your home for campaign 2024 coverage. Okay, y'all, the first in the nation Democratic presidential primary takes place this Saturday, February 3rd. So we're going to focus this pod on all things presidential Democratic politics. So just trust us. We're going to be on top of everything happening this week going into the... What? Wow, okay. Well, we have something to announce, folks. Breaking news. President Joe Biden has already been declared the winner of the South Carolina primary. Wow, that was serious. All right. Okay, now that may be the case, but we're still going to do this pod, so just put that out of your mind. No spoilers, but also spoiler, dear leaders. However, since we've been so hard on the Republican presidential primary campaign trail, remember, we have a homegrown candidate still in this race, folks. That's been the focus. So let's focus on what the Democrats have been doing here in South Carolina. This has been a busy month as the state Democratic Party, in concert with the Democratic National Committee, ramped up its We Go First, Get Out the Vote efforts in the state to motivate voters. There's only one first in the nation Democratic presidential primary, and it happens this Saturday in South Carolina. Again, take that, New Hampshire, Granite State. And that was the reason for celebration this past Saturday in Columbia, where hundreds of Democrats gathered to hear from the leader of their party and the de facto nominee, President Joe Biden. Unlike the Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison and the rest of the party is allowing the process to play out on the Democratic side with top challenger Congressman Dean Phillips, though he has no chance at winning this primary. But they're still letting it go through the process. And of course, the RNC is also doing that now as well, since Trump came out and said for them to do so. What? Yeah, I know we're not supposed to talk about the Republicans. I know. Hey, but again, going back to Dean Phillips, he lost to Biden in New Hampshire's unsanctioned primary when Biden won by write-in. But Phillips was in Columbia Saturday and gave remarks. Even while people were still shuffling in due to an oddly timed program, it made for some awkward moments, including Phillips asking the crowd to please pay attention. Not a good sign, tough crowd. But the focus there was on Biden, who was there once again to thank Democrats for the critical win back in the 2020 primary, which rejuvenated his campaign. Biden, along with Congressman Jim Clyburn, also reminded folks of how much has been accomplished in his first term, as he looks to shore up support among the base. And Biden got fired up talking about Trump. So let's first start with party chairwoman Crystal Spain, who was the first to warn Democrats not to vote in the Republican primary.
We've got to put our nominee on the best possible footing to defeat whatever MAGA Republican comes out of their primary. We are reminding voters that they should not get involved in a Republican primary where every single Republican wants to ban abortion nationwide, wants to cut Social Security and Medicare, and wants to cut taxes for the ultra wealthy. We are reminding South Carolina Democrats that Nikki Haley is the mother of MAGA. She was MAGA before MAGA had a name. She signed an extreme abortion ban into law. We remember that. We remember that she refused to expand Medicaid, forcing the only hospital in her hometown to close. If she will do that to the people she grew up with, what will she do to you and me? So there's too much at stake, South Carolina voters. A good showing at our ballot box puts our nominee on the best footing possible. So please, please, remember, Saturday, February 3rd, it's our time. The nation is looking at South Carolina. The future of this country is in the hands of South Carolinians.
First Vice Chair Colleen Condon, who introduced Congressman Phillips, had these choice words for former Governor Nikki Haley as well.
Now, first of all, I've got to actually add one thing to what my friend Crystal said. Don't forget, on top of everything else Nikki Haley did, she also defied a federal judge in granting marriage equality for the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. I had to sue her to get married. I mean, there are so many things we could talk about, all the problems with Nikki Haley. Do not let your friends go vote in that primary, please.
So yes, while some in the national media have theorized that there may be some crossover of Democratic voters in the Republican primary, its own little Project Chaos, there is no love lost with Democrats who lived in South Carolina under Haley's tenure from 2010 through 2017. Condon and their partner sued Haley in 2014 over the 2007 constitutional ban on gay marriage in the state, despite the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling in favor of same-sex couples in the Bostock case. It wasn't until the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the following summer in Obergefell that South Carolina allowed same-sex marriage. Meanwhile, here is a clip of Congressman Phillips making his pitch to Democrats.
And I'm here to tell you, the numbers do not say things are looking good. So my invitation to President Biden, a man I love, a man I respect, a man who saved this country, a man who did a lot of good in the last 4 years. My invitation to President Biden is to pass the torch to a new generation ready to take the stage, ready to take that man on, and ready to win when the numbers say we can, my friends. That's what we have to do. Many in this country, in this state, in this very room have been told to stand in line, wait your turn. Not in America when we have a man like Donald Trump coming back to the White House. So that is all I'm here to tell you. I love you all, and no matter what, whether it's President Biden, whether it's me, or whether it's somebody else this November, we have got to do everything we can to energize, to mobilize, and get people out to vote. I love you, South Carolina. You've been so lovely, amazing, hospitable, and adorable. Love you all. I'm Dean Phillips, and thank you so much for having me tonight.
Eternal hype man, Assistant Democratic leader, Congressman Jim Clyburn, was introduced by his protege, DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison, who had previously led the state Democratic Party prior to his failed 2020 Senate bid against Lindsey Graham. Clyburn rattled off Biden's accomplishments to the crowd.
Joe Biden just stopped there. He saw what was happening with some of his own personal experiences with his own son. He saw what those burned pits were doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he decided that we had to do something to make life better for our returning veterans. But he decided that he wouldn't just limit it to Iraq and Afghanistan. He remembered what happened to the Vietnam veterans who came back home unceremoniously. Many of them were getting 10, 15% disability. When if we had a compassionate government, we'd have done better by them. We went back with that bill and picked up those Vietnam veterans, brought that forward, and so those who were getting 15 and 20% now getting 100% disability, thanks to Joe Biden. I've talked to them all over the state, and they are now getting it because we got the president with compassion.
Clyburn also recounted Biden working to get student loan debt forgiven for folks. Though the U.S. Supreme Court stopped a larger effort, to date there has been $137 billion in student loan debt forgiven for 3.7 million Americans under Biden's term due to fixes made under the Income-Driven Payment Forgiveness and Public Service Loan Forgiveness programs. So it's a lot of money. Biden also got $11.7 billion forgiven for almost 513,000 borrowers with a total and permanent disability, and $22.5 billion for more than 1.3 million borrowers who were cheated by their schools, saw their institutions precipitously close, or are covered by related court settlements. Ever hear of Trump University? This according to the U.S. Department of Education. Biden, in his remarks, also reiterated his accomplishments, as well as the diversity of his administration, and appointing the most black women to the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals than all of his predecessors combined. That includes Judge Michelle Childs, and Biden also mentioned that he appointed the first black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court, with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But Biden had harsh words for former President Donald Trump. He gets pretty heated here. Take a listen.
As Commander-in-Chief, I think we have only one sacred obligation. I've said it many times. Prepare those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home. Well, as Commander-in-Chief, I look at veterans completely differently than Donald Trump. Think about this, especially here in South Carolina, a proud military state. Donald Trump, when he was Commander-in-Chief, refused to visit a cemetery, U.S. cemetery outside of Paris for fallen American soldiers. And he referred to those heroes, and I quote, as suckers and losers. He actually said that. He said that. How dare he say that? How dare he talk about my son and all of us just like that? Look, I call them patriots and heroes. The only loser I see is Donald Trump. It makes me angry. I apologize for losing my temper, but it really, really, really offends me.
Biden capped his two-day visit to South Carolina on Sunday when he attended services at St. John Baptist Church in Columbia with Clyburn. At an event later in the day at Brooklyn Baptist Church, Biden asked for a moment of silence for the 3 American soldiers killed and 34 injured in a drone strike in Jordan. And I want to continue our recap of this big month for Democrats and go back to the start of the month on January 8th when President Biden spoke at Mother Emanuel AME Church. Remember, that was the site of the horrific massacre back in June 2015 where 9 black parishioners were killed by white supremacists. On January 8th, SCE-TV cameras were there, as well as South Carolina Public Radio's Victoria Hansen, but I want to play for you some remarks from Biden that day, who used the hallowed space to reiterate the themes of his 2020 campaign of fighting for the soul of America.
On June 17, 2015, the beautiful souls, 5 survivors, invited a stranger into this church to pray with them. The word of God was pierced by bullets of hate, of rage, propelled by not just gunpowder, but by a poison. Poison that has for too long haunted this nation. And what is that poison? White supremacy. Oh, it is. It's a poison. Throughout our history, it's ripped this nation apart. It has no place in America. Not today, tomorrow, or ever. From that day, this nation saw this congregation, this community, demonstrate one of the greatest acts of strength I have ever seen. I mean it sincerely from the bottom of it. The act of forgiveness, the act of grace. It was as President Obama sang from here, Amazing Grace. You changed hearts. You did something that may not have happened but for your courage. You brought down the Confederate flag in South Carolina. You brought it down. No.
Biden told those gathered that he and his son Hunter and other family members worshiped at the church the weekend after the memorial service, which came 22 days after he had just buried his other son, Beau. The experience gave him strength, he said, and Biden also spoke of his friend, Congressman Clyburn, in the fight for truth, which was then interrupted by protesters.
He knows the power of truth. and the power of lies. He knows what happens when people are allowed to whitewash history, erase history, bury history. He knows what the Bible teaches. We shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. But the truth is under assault in America. As a consequence, so is our freedom, our democracy, our very country, because without the truth, there's no light. Without light, there's no path from this darkness.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire!
The congregation then chanted 4 more years over the protester who was escorted out, and Biden said he's been working with Israel to reduce casualties and pull out Israeli forces from Gaza. Again, he's not the president of Israel. I'm not here to give protesters a platform, but I just want to give you that little snippet, and it's quite something to have the nerve to protest inside such a sacred space. But Biden also made a casual dig at Nikki Haley's muddled response over the cause of the Civil War. Remember, this was earlier in the month when that was top of the news.
After the Civil War, the defeated Confederates couldn't accept the verdict of the war. They had lost. So they say they embraced what's known as the lost cause, a self-serving lie that the Civil War is not about slavery, but about states' rights. They've called that the noble cause. That was a lie that had not just a lie, but it had terrible consequences. It brought on Jim Crow. So let me be clear, for those who don't seem to know, slavery was the cause of the Civil War. There's no negotiation about that.
Vice President Kamala Harris was in Myrtle Beach just days before Biden's visit, and she gave the keynote speech at the Women's Missionary Society retreat of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Then on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, she participated in the King Day at the Dome event here in Columbia and spoke before hundreds gathered.
Freedom is fundamental to the promise of America. Freedom is not to be given. It is not to be bestowed. It is ours by right. And in many ways, the story of America has been a story of our fight to realize that promise. As Dr. King wrote in the letter from Birmingham jail, the goal of America is freedom. And so we gather this afternoon to honor his legacy.
Harris also brought up restrictive laws passed dealing with voting rights and abortion access. You'll also hear someone shouting in the background here. It's in the distance, but it was another protester. Couldn't tell you what it was about.
Well, as Vice President of the United States, I'd say at this moment in America, freedom is under profound threat. Today, in fact, we are witnessing a full-on attack on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms. Consider, in states across our nation, extremists attack the sacred freedom to vote. They pass laws to ban drop boxes, limit early voting, and restrict absentee ballots. In Georgia, extremists had the gall to pass a law to even make it illegal to simply offer food and water to people standing in line for hours to exercise their basic civic duty. I ask the friends, whatever happened to love thy neighbor? The hypocrisy abounds. And please note, the governor in Georgia signed that law on the 56th anniversary of the march from Selma to Montgomery.
Harris also made digs at book bans and moves to clamp down on how history is taught in states like Florida, while echoing Biden's sentiments that the Civil War was in fact fought over slavery. This argument made outside of the State House, where bronze markers denote where Sherman's troops hit the building with cannon fire back in January 1865.
All the while, they tell our children that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, in an attempt to divide and distract our nation with unnecessary debates. Fundamental freedoms under assault. Freedom from fear, violence, and harm. Freedom to vote, to live, to learn, to control one's own body. And the freedom to simply be.
So yes, we've seen these two visits from Harris. Another one is expected sometime later this week, ahead of the primary. And we also saw two big visits from Biden this month as well. So can't say that they're not paying attention to South Carolina. They're basically part-time residents.
Okay.
There have also been other big Democrats floating around the state, including DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison, California Governor Gavin Newsom, great name, great hair, California Congressman Ro Khanna,
California,
Biden-Harris 2024 National Co-Chair Mitch Landrieu, and others, as the state continues its We Go First statewide Get Out the Vote tour ahead of the First in the Nation primary this Saturday. That can again safely report that Joe Biden has won. That tour, along with the events and visits by the leaders of the party, is meant to pump up voters, get them motivated and ready to vote for Biden again this fall. Of course, as you all know, South Carolina will go solidly Republican this fall, but the road to the White House in 2024 for the Democrats starts right here, right now in South Carolina. And they're looking to invigorate folks and offset stories of a lack of enthusiasm among the core members of the party. South Carolina Public Radio's Maayan Schechter recently looked at the topic.
In 2020, Biden faced a long list of Democratic contenders. He scooped up 49% of the vote in the South Carolina primary. This time, he's the incumbent, so Congressman Jim Clyburn thinks Biden will get a very strong showing in next month's Democratic primary here.
He has a record, and it's a great record, and it's particularly a great record for South Carolina. So I do expect him to do much, much better.
A strong showing in South Carolina would validate Democrats' decision to make the state the first official nominating contest. And they're also hoping that if they can increase their support among Black voters here, it could provide some momentum for November. But some Democrats aren't convinced that Biden deserves their support.
Well, if the turnout is low, Black voters are saying we're not energized.
That's 31-year-old Chris Sally, a former upstate county party chair. He didn't vote for Biden 4 years ago, and he says he's not planning to again. Instead, next month, he plans to write in progressive activist Cornel West. Sally says he just doesn't see the economy working for everyone, since he knows people working multiple jobs.
The Black community, the young communities are still saying, you're not listening to us. We're not saying it's not possible to get our vote, but you need to listen to us. It's not guaranteed just by being a little bit better.
On the other hand, 66-year-old Susan Lewis says this election is too critical to sit home. Lewis said she's doing what she can to motivate others to show up on Election Day.
I just could not sit at home and not do my part that I can do.
An NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll from last month found Black voters like Lewis overwhelmingly approve of Biden. Most of those voters are over the age of 45. Antoine C. Wright is a 38-year-old South Carolina-based Democratic strategist. He has a message for Democrats whose concerns with Biden may lead them to stay home.
I would much rather have Joe Biden in this position to deal with your concerns and their issues than the other side.
C. Wright does think the party and Biden surrogates need to sharpen their message and meet the voters where they are. Clyburn does agree and says some of the things the administration should highlight are lowering prices on insulin and forgiving some student loan debt.
These are big, mammoth things, the biggest stuff since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program, and nobody is giving him credit for it because we weren't going out there telling him. We got to tell them.
And that's what the Biden-Harris campaign says they're trying to do. It's why the president spoke earlier this month at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, the site of the 2015 racist mass shooting. It's why Vice President Kamala Harris was here on King Day.
And of course, that's the reason why Joe Biden and others have been around the state trying to reinvigorate folks. Thanks, Maayan. You can find that report and more at southcarolinapublicradio.org. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here, especially our listeners in Italy and others around the world. We know you're listening. I see that we're on the Chartable charts over there in Italy when it comes to political news podcasts. So thanks for listening. Bienvenue?
I don't know.
What's the...
Hello? You haven't introduced me either. Who am I?
You can't talk.
Nobody
You can't talk until I say your name.
Who knows who I am?
A.T. Sharp.
Oh, thank you so much.
Podcast producer, Italian, welcome.
Honorary Italian, which just means I'm from New Jersey.
Bienvenuto.
Yeah, bienvenuto. Bellissimo.
Benvenuto. Bienvenuto.
Yeah, it's Bellissimo. We love you.
Bellissimo.
We love you so much. Marinad. Buenos noches.
Buenos noches.
I don't know if that's correct. I think that might be Spanish, but we're all love languages here. Anyway, Gavin.
Buona notte.
We're not just popular in Italy. We do have American calls.
Just trying to get our Italian listeners to call us. Guys, it's free. You can text us too. 803-567-6969.
If you know a Luca, please have them call. If you know a John Luca, starts with a G,
I was going to say, I did edit with an NPR editor who was based in Spain. So that's obviously not Italy, but
it's
still
close enough.
Within our region.
Anyway, let's get to these real American calls, okay?
Let's talk to some Americans.
We're going to get 2 calls in here. We're doing a dubby dip, okay?
A classic American double dip.
Yes. This is the
ranch.
You can only get this in America.
Extra ranch.
First call.
Ranch buffalo sauce.
First call. We just got this right before we started recording.
Incredible.
It is
hot off the press.
Heartbreaking
God.
news. Are you ready, Gavin?
I think so.
Here we go.
Hey, Gavin and AT. Baby's mama coming at you from the sick bed. COVID has not disappeared. Dadgummit. So I am on first day out from school. Tested positive on Saturday. It was hilarious how fast that test turned positive. Baby's daddy's been taking care of all the babies and taking care of me. Hopefully, I'll be back in the classroom later this week. Hopefully without sharing this with anybody. I hope all is well with y'all. Mayon's episode was hilarious and awesome, but I think I prefer Gavin still. I hope all is going well with the pregnancy. Please keep us posted. And take care, y'all. Stay safe.
Baby's mama, no.
So
she
sad.
got COVID. I think she just wanted a break. She's like, please give me some time off from the kids and the schools. I hear you. Get some rest, baby's mama.
Baby's daddy's got it.
Thank you for the kind words.
I'm just glad. I know when you get COVID real bad and you do see that test just flip immediately, 10 seconds in, positive. You know. I'm glad baby's daddy's there. I'm glad that you used what energy reserves you had to get. You gotta give. Okay,
all the tests that I
pod.
have now, you have to have them linked to the Bluetooth app, and it takes all 15 minutes. Yeah, the ones that I got from the post office that came in the mail. There's an app, and you have to keep your phone out open to the app for all 15 minutes. I'm like, you guys already know the result. It's just stupid. It's like, how much? We don't need to go high tech for a COVID test here, folks.
I have to send them pictures of me with no shirt on. And
also, I like the old school test where you can save the positive ones, so then you can just send them to your friends and be like, yeah, I'm sorry, can't go out. I got the positive one.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the one good thing about COVID.
Oh my God. No, that's not true.
Nor.
Thank you there, baby's mama.
Anyway, baby's mama, thank you so much. Gavin, are you ready for number 2? Another voice that we cherish so much on this podcast.
Yes, I've dipped my celery in the ranch, and now I'm going to dip it in the blue cheese, because I did not know that was ranch.
I want double white sauces, okay? That's what we're here for. Anyway, here it is.
Crunch.
Gavin, AT, this is your friend Meg, and I am calling you on this lovely Saturday morning from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. You know, I intended to make this call while I was up in icy, frozen, frigid Iowa with Gavin. Recently, I thought that would be fun, a little campaign trail update, and then time got away from me, and I was like, oh, well, that was a good idea. But then I came home to South Carolina, and all of a sudden, here I am in Myrtle Beach on the campaign trail, covering one of our candidates stumping here in this state, instead of being in New Hampshire right now, where Gavin has been most recently. So I just wanted to say hello, to let you both know I'm thinking of you. I was ecstatic to spend some trail time with Gavin as we were up there in Iowa, just driving all the miles, fending off all the snow, and really just kind of surviving and hopefully thriving. I know that things are incredibly busy. They will continue to be so. And I just want to send you both some love, because no matter what's happening in these crazy days, as we're traversing and writing and podcasting and filming and doing stand-ups and missing flights and dealing with flight delays, my love for you both is eternal. And I'm thankful for you and for all of the listeners out there who keep all of us sane, really, with their support while we are in the trenches and bringing everyone the campaign trail news. So I'll see you both soon. Much love to you, and I'm off to enjoy this day in Dirty Myrtle. See ya.
Oh, a voice of an angel, Meg Kennard.
Certified angel. Friend of the pod doesn't do her justice.
No, she, I hate that I wasn't there first. She was covering Ron DeSantis when Ron DeSantis was still in the race. That's how old this call is,
That just feels like a lifetime ago.
Sure was,
at this point.
yeah.
Very sad that you didn't have Meg up there with you.
It was tragic. It was
Yes.
hard not to have Meg. We also got a little disjointed in Iowa. We didn't have as much drive time together, which was tragic.
Awful. Did she have, what kind of car did she have?
She had a GMC
I already don't like it.
SUV.
I already don't like it. It's not a Volvo. I don't like it.
It wasn't a Volvo.
I like
yeah.
a Nordic car.
So when I was in New Hampshire, I had that Ford Explorer, huge car, roomy car. I would have got it if I had a larger family.
Yes, the
Or
third
it
row
was
for
like
the family.
driving like Uber XL, but the Volvo S60 was a simple delight. I want anyone who works for Volvo, like, please give me a car and I will talk about it on every podcast.
I just like that you were in a frozen tundra
with the Volvo.
So you needed a car from people who live in a frozen tundra, right?
Correct.
Like the sun goes down and it doesn't
There was
come
actually,
out.
I actually talked to a Swedish photographer and I was like, oh, I'm driving a Volvo. He's like, I like you even more now. I'm like, that was the extent of our conversation. I was like, see, you just gotta make the best of it. But Meg was talking about doing all the meaty hits.
Busy.
She has been working and working and working.
Yeah, work it, girl. Hey.
And we're getting all these requests from like the different cable news networks and such to do hits and such like that. And C-SPAN has reached out to me again. I did Washington Journal last Sunday. I love spending my Sunday mornings on Washington Journal.
Yeah.
But they reached out again. And because that was supposed to be 5 minutes, turned into 15 minutes. I can talk until the cows come home. Now they're like, hey, we're going to do a podcast. We have a segment on podcasts.
Generic on podcasts,
And I'm like,
yes.
cool. And it's 45 minutes long on Saturday morning.
You're trying to say this as like it's a bad thing?
And I get to take calls.
I am so jealous. I'm thinking about calling.
I'm
thinking about calling. I am thinking about calling.
I kept thinking, finally, I get to talk about it without AT being there, because when you talk, we give our speeches and we fight each other low-key.
I love to cut Gavin off. Yeah. I can't help myself.
And I'm stuck there smiling and nodding and be like, "Adapa-dapa." So actually, you know what you could do? You could watch it and you can text me things I need to keep saying if I haven't said it yet.
I'm just going to call in.
You can produce from afar.
Yeah. We'll call in, be like, say some wild stuff, and then go, anyway, is a hot dog a sandwich? What do you think? That's really what I want to call. First time, long time.
I'm going to I reject the question. I reject the premise. I'm not.
I know who this is. Hang up on him. Hang up on him.
I kind of thought, I'm like, should I tell people that I'm going to be taking calls? Whatever.
Yes, please call
I'm not
in.
telling you
Prank
what
this
time
man.
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Around the 10 o'clock hour. But I'm looking forward to it.
I'm very
Every
jealous.
4 years we're doing that stuff. So
I want to hear people from across the country yell at C-SPAN people and just watch them take it, Like, I'm very interested
I'm going to
in that.
work on my resting Gavin face,
Yes.
where I'm like,
Yes.
that's why there's Botox in this face,
I'm not
baby.
betraying any feeling, but I'm maintaining composure.
But this is just part of the greater Lead universe as we've been expanding.
This is where we're announcing that Lead, we're buying C-SPAN. Lead, not SCETV. So
we've been saving up.
Yeah.
I know it's created by the cable companies.
We got it.
I've seen them in
a
action.
great
I'm like,
deal.
I want that. People love this. So it's going to be good to to tout the lead, get some new listeners, especially our listeners in Italy.
Yes. Italia. That's what they say there.
I've been to Italy a couple of times.
Good for you, Brad. Good for you. Good
Bologna.
for you. That's what they like for you. Bologna.
Bologna.
Pronounced bologna.
Bologna.
They say bologna there. But anyway, Gavin, I do think the cows are coming home. So you've spoken too much. Oh, actually, Gavin, hold on.
No.
Yep. They're right. We have to close the
That's
show.
our other producer.
Yeah, the mostly silent partner, just little chirps. Anyway, Gavin, do the outro.
Oh, thank you to Baby's mama and our friend Meg Kennard. We love hearing from you guys. Please do us a solid like they did and give us a shout out 803-563-7169. And you can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or if you don't want to do either of those or all of those, you can also fill out our survey at southcarolinapublicradio.org/lead survey. Please, we're trying to get big in Italy. We need to know if you guys think that's a good idea if we just convert straight to Italian. You can always stay up to date with the latest news on sctv.org and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. For the South Carolina Lede, I'm Gavin Jackson. And stai bene, Carolina del Sud.
And just pause for a second, and then...
Hey, what is going on here?
Yeah, we're not doing it yet.
Was that too soon?
We're running
Well, I was just running
that. We're running it.
That was good, sweetie. That was good.
Hey, flash the lights next time.
And then...